morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for another N-able session. This is going to be on N-able XDR, MDR, and breach prevention for M365. We're going to start off here in probably another minute or two. We're just allowing additional attendees to get in and get themselves situated. Make sure the audio is sorted and they can hear us. Everybody is going to be on mute since this is a recorded session, but of course, don't hesitate to ask questions. We will have plenty of time at the end for anybody that has follow-up questions after the presentation. So don't feel like if we don't talk about something, you'll miss your opportunity to ask questions on it. But don't hesitate during the session if I'm covering something and you want to go a little bit deeper into it. Don't hesitate to put that into the questions section of GoTo. And it looks like we've got most of everybody in and their audio sorted. So we'll go ahead and get started. As always, we get the legalese out of the way. If we make any forward-looking statements during today's session, take it with a grain of salt. Final form, function, and delivery dates may change. For anybody that's joining us for the first time, I am Lewis Pope, one of the head nerds at N-able. My focus is on security and compliance, very much so the dirty work of getting things actually done. So best practices, practical implementation of security controls. And I'm a resource for you here at N-able if you need me. So just starting out, I think it's worth talking about where threats are coming from nowadays. These are numbers from the N-able MDR powered by Adlumin service. This is what we saw over a 3-month period this year, at the beginning of this year. 44% of our detections for events, so things that signified a security event that needed to be investigated, triaged, remediated, 44% of those events came from cloud. 56% of them came from endpoint. And this just highlights the fact that if you are not taking care of the cloud for your clients, and that's your identity management plane, that's your M365, that's your AWS identity management, Google Workspaces, whatever it may be, you're missing out on a significant set of signals, close to half of your opportunities to detect and stop attacks that are affecting your clients. If we take a look at what a sample, what a actual attack nowadays looks like, this is an example of an attack that is a no-click attack. It requires no interaction on the behalf of the user. This starts out with a threat actor out there in the world somewhere sets up a server that they control. You can't stop them, you can't control it. They're able to do this unhindered. And then they'll send a crafted email to a user of M365. Whenever that user opens up that email through, and it's not even the user, it's the Outlook application, whenever it reaches up into Exchange, pulls down that email like it's supposed to do, there's a malicious calendar invite in it. Once your Windows Outlook says, hey, we need to process this calendar invite, grab whatever is on the other side of this URL, which since it's a URL, that means anything that is routable on the network will be able to be reached. So the attacker has just told a computer within a network that you're responsible for that it should go out to the internet and try to authenticate against that attacker controlled server. And whenever that happens, the attacker is able to capture your NTLM hashes. Also some additional information that they can leverage that allows them to perform man-in-the-middle attacks, maybe even attempt to crack or reverse encrypt certain credentials if the domain was set up incorrectly. What you're looking at once this happens, and again, this is something that happens with absolutely zero user interaction, they now have what they need to start getting into the M365 environment and whatever else the M365 identity is federated to. This can allow them to have access to VPNs. Once they're on the other side of the VPNs within the M365 environment themselves, they are able to start doing lateral movement and reconnaissance, accessing RDP ports internally instead of relying on somebody accidentally leaving the port forwarding on the router. And you're going to find yourself in a situation where the threat actors can set up persistence. They can find the type of sensitive data that they want. They can start exfiltrating that data out and destroying backups you may have in place. These are the MOs, these are the these are the standard operating procedures of a lot of cybercrime gangs, ransomware gangs, threat groups. And then eventually they will get to the stage of let's download the ransomware payload. And if all you have in place is traditional endpoint security solutions, this would be your first opportunity to catch this attack. You have lost control of data. Threat actors have set up persistence in the environment, and chances are your ability to catch it for the first time is whenever they download that ransomware payload, and maybe not even whenever they download it, but when they actually execute it and it starts encrypting data in the environment. So I like going through this particular attack chain because this is something that affected everybody until Microsoft addressed this. But of course, that relied on proper patching, proper updates, having a good sense of the current status of a client's environments to make sure this was done and taken care of. But again, if all you had was endpoint security, you know nothing about most of these actions that were happening in your environment. And this goes into why today we need to have more than what we've had before. The threat landscape has changed. The challenges that we're facing and are required to defend against. You'll hear a lot of people talk about advanced persistent threat actors, how we have to worry about nation state hackers like that come from North Korea or elsewhere. While in reality, it's 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and 19-year-olds as well that are attacking firms like M&S and Co-op in the UK with this Scattered Spider group that were just arrested about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's not always sophisticated threat actors you're defending against, but they are using the tools that were created by sophisticated threat actors. The bar has been lowered significantly. So we now need all kinds of different capabilities at all different layers of our infrastructure, from cloud services all the way down to devices. These are all different types of threats that we are having to contend with today that, again, we did not have to contend with 3 or 4 years ago. And this is also reflected, I won't spend a lot of time on this one, but just in the transition that we had from endpoint security to EDR solutions. Whenever you have a regular endpoint security solution, you have an event that's detected, there's a lot of additional work. You have to do additional forensics, additional investigations using different tools from different sources, versus an EDR solution. All that information is already available for you in the console. You have to manually perform remediations versus the EDR solutions that are out today being able to automatically apply those remediations for you. And this just transitions for you as an MSP, offloading more work, gathering more intelligence, gathering it more quickly, making sure that you're able to have access to it. But the practical end result for your client outcomes is you have 2 different end statements. You're either saying, we don't know everything that happened on the endpoint and we can't make any guarantees because we don't have a good running history. We don't have telemetry. We don't have a running log of all the events on the device. So we're giving you our best guess. Versus with an EDR solution, it's like, well, no, we have high quality telemetry and analytical data, and we're sure we know everything that happened on this endpoint, and we have a record of those modifications being made, and we have a record of those modifications being reverted. And those are 2 very different endpoints you can find yourself in, but that's only one part of the whole puzzle. Again, endpoints by themselves is just one component of this wide estate of capabilities that you're now expected to possess as an MSP, the ability to ingest these security events from network appliances, from cloud services, from the endpoints, from your VPN appliances and services, from syslog, from multiple different types of network appliances. This is all part of the expectations of the modern MSP, so that you can collect all of this information, create correlations based on the telemetry, user behavior analytics, AI-powered detections, machine learning algorithms, and also just handwritten data science rules, so that it can empower threat hunting and investigation capabilities. So you're able to, again, put yourself in a situation where you're able to say, we know what happened, we have a record of it, we're able to respond, we're able to notify about it, we can remediate and triage, and we're able to bundle all this together with good reporting. So let's break it down a little bit about what N-able MDR actually does. I like to explain it by this path of capabilities, because this is what you are getting whenever you have access to the N-able MDR platform. First and foremost, it is a SIEM solution. This can replace your SIEM solution, no problem, in 99% of the situations you're going to encounter. Once all of that information is in the SIEM portion of Adlumin, then it's going to be, receive the XDR treatment. There's going to be the correlation data, user behavioral analytics, all of the searching into that SIEM data lake for all of these types of events that are going to be, well, the signal within all of the noise. Then there's the SOAR action, so security orchestration, automation, and response. So the ability to, whenever a threat is detected on an endpoint, that endpoint can be isolated. Whenever a user is detected to be performing unusual behavior or having unusual logon behaviors, locking down that user. And that's all fed in as well into the 24/7, the MDR offering, or the 24/7 SOC. So if you do not have the talent, you don't have the internal skill set, you just simply don't have enough bodies, you can offload the 24/7 operations and the need to perform the investigation and triage and first line remediation actions to the N-able MDR team. And that's going to also lead you into auditability and compliance, because the biggest thing you need to be able to do when it comes to compliance, almost universally, is you need the evidence. And that evidence is represented by the SIEM component and the record of actions that you're taking against these events as they progress. So in all, it's a lot of small little problems that we're solving whenever you're looking at N-able MDR. First, if you have not traditionally run a SIEM, there's a lot of challenges there. How do you obtain the data? Where do you store it? How do you parse it? And then on the XDR level, it's, well, which threat intel feeds are we ingesting? Who's doing the research on these threat intelligence feeds? Who on the team is going to be writing the new rules based on these threat intelligence feeds? And then into the SOAR as well. What orchestrates the SOAR actions? How are we going to automate that? Who's writing the actions for that? And again, we have to do that for the endpoints, and we have to do that for M365 as well. And then when you get into the 24/7 SOC operations, do you have the payroll to hire? What happens, if you have after-hour events and you're only working a 9 to 5 operations with 24/7 monitoring and not 24/7 security operations? And there's just a ton of small little things that we solve for you along the way that's going to put you in a position where you're a lot of little problems in one solution. But maybe you don't need all of these little problems solved. Maybe it's for the purposes of, your client base can't consume or cannot bear the cost of a full MDR, XDR, and SIEM solution. We do have the option for you to consume just breach prevention for Microsoft M365. This can be, your across the board baseline as well. It is a great way of having capabilities in place so you can spot unusual activity for your M365 users. the opportunity to disrupt attacks at the start. So instead of finding out something's gone wrong after an attacker has gained access to credentials and used those credentials to do damage, you're finding out about it and stopping it much, much sooner in the kill chain. That helps you keep data protected. And we're doing that for you, powered by, again, by AI and the SOAR actions that we have and the user behavior analytics, but also the 24/7 MDR team that's able to investigate these additionally for you if you really need it. So Adlumin Breach Prevention for M365, really straightforward option. It's going to give you some compliance insights and some detection severity metrics on stale accounts in the M365 tenant and some other things. It'll give you a little bit additional visibility, but most importantly, it's giving you a very fast, very quick to market solution for M365 identity protection. Getting a M365 tenant enrolled and set up and configured for Adlumin is really after you do it the first time and you understand the process, it's a 5 to 10 minute process to onboard each individual tenant. It'll probably take 30 days of tuning and training for the platform to really understand and adjust itself to the tenant. So it's not just disabling user accounts left and right because it's never seen the users logging in from those locations before, but 30 days after doing the initial configuration, you'll review, make sure everything's nice and tuned into what you want it to be, and then you let it start going with these SOAR actions as automated responses for you. And you now have something that is 24/7, regardless of whether it's weekends or holidays, 3 o'clock in the morning, a user logs in from somewhere they should not be able to log in for because of impossible travel, or there are modifications happening to that user or the user's mailboxes that triggers thresholds violations. The platform will go ahead and automatically lock that user down for you. And what we're seeing for this right now, these are some numbers from a 3-month period we had at the early part of this year. We monitored what was happening in our Adlumin services, and we did 6,056 accounts being disabled because of the M365 Breach Prevention. We had 3,879 password reset actions we triggered. And on endpoints, there were 500 endpoint isolations we conducted. And on the active threat detection, so after something was found to be malicious in the environment and doing things, there was 3,576 remediation actions that we took on behalf of our customers for them. And we also kicked off additional Windows Defender scans over 3,400 times. And again, this is just a 3-month period of what we've seen, and all of these represent pretty much all true positive events. The false positive rate on these are mainly attributable to somebody traveling and not informing our MSP customers that that user was traveling and that they should expect to see them logging in from somewhere new and unusual. So as an example here on a few things, well, really, what is this practically doing for us in the field? So these are the types of SLO, SLAs you can kind of expect out of the MDR platform offering, because we have the fog ransomware attacks that were prevalent. This is a ransomware as a service affiliate program. So threat actors, cyber criminals, aspiring hooligans can gain access to the platform, or they could, for a nominal fee, a lot less than what it costs to run an MSP for a day. And because more people have access to it, the bar is lowered for who's going to be targeted with it. They're going to be using it against whoever they can. But we did detect a few of these attacks, and it roughly averaged out to detecting these attacks within 2 minutes, having the threat contained within 6 minutes, being able to notify the end customer within about 14 minutes and closing it out and resolving it as a threat removed and kind of case closed within 16 minutes. Now, that's not going to be every situation, but it is a good showing of what the mean times can look like. And one of the important things here is remembering that we're doing this before a lot of the damage gets done. Adlumin, the agent that is on endpoints above and beyond what your EDR solutions or your endpoint protections platforms may be doing for you. The Adlumin agent on your endpoint will also be monitoring for behaviors that are associated with ransomware, but also the exfiltration, the data exfiltration activities that usually occur along with ransomware attacks. And for real world results, what does it look like whenever you actually go out there and put this in practice? So we had Venture City, New Jersey come on board, and they had suffered from a previous incident ransomware attack that kind of compelled them to move over to MDR, N-able MDR, because they made the realization we need to have these types of capabilities. Within the first 6 hours of deploying it, we were already picking up brute force attacks within the environment, and they were able to identify, flag that system, and isolate that workstation before attackers were able to perform lateral movement within the environment from that compromised workstation. So we're now going to drop into a few practical capabilities within the platform. So this is where if anybody's got questions, feel free to start popping those into questions. I will gladly show you different components of the dashboard. But we're going to start out with, well, let's talk about threat hunting, because whatever you integrate inside of Adlumin is going to become part of the SIEM, the data lake that you have available to you to perform threat hunting activities. Now, you do not have to do this. We're doing a lot of this work on your behalf as part of the platform and the service. But there will be situations where you will want to come in and you will want to conduct your own threat hunting or investigative work. We can do that a couple of different ways. First is we can be proactive about it. If you have somebody on your team that is skilled enough or they have the interest in it, and they want to stay very much on top of whatever the indicators of compromise are for the threats that you are concerned about for your client base, they can come to the research tab and they can start writing queries for it. So maybe we have a heads up that a particular user is being associated with some type of nefarious activity, unknown activity, or just anomalous activity. We can come in here and just simply search for that user. I could search by them by just part of the name or the full email address associated with the user. And this will give us, as we see here, a ton of Active Directory activity revolving around that user. I can expand this out and investigate more deeply on this information if I need to. And I can even take and start adding this into part of my investigation. So I can tell it, you know what, this is exactly the piece of information I needed, or an additional piece of information I needed to understand what's happening. Let me add this to my current ongoing investigation that I might be running. But of course, that's a lot of entries coming back for that. You know, maybe I don't want to know every single last thing that was happening involving that user. So instead, I can refine this. So I can say, well, I want to find every time that on the desktop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there was the event ID for 4624, and the logon type was 2 or 10. So those are remote logins. That is somebody or a user has logged into that device with a remote session. Now, if none of your end users are supposed to be able to do this, this would be a very clear indicator that this isn't normal for this environment. I need to go investigate it. But here we're just doing it as we know something happened and we need to dig into it now. I can even say that, well, hey, maybe I want to expand out even more, and I want to tag it specifically to that particular user. So it's not just any logins on that desktop, it's any remote logins for that specific user, which is going to be very handy whenever you're conducting any type of investigations. But again, this is active threat hunting. You're keyed in. You know that there's something you're supposed to be looking for and trying to find. Again, this is very easy to learn. The search syntax for this is fairly straightforward. But you also want to be able to be more proactive. So we do have the ability for you to create those custom detections. So maybe there's an active threat campaign that you know is targeting businesses in the verticals you support. If you find it happening in one client, chances are is you may find it happening in other clients, but you also want to know as soon as it happens. That would be done by coming in and creating a custom detection. We're going to say that this is for Adlumin endpoints or Windows endpoints, that query string. So we can say if the event, I'll say if the event ID is for 4264, that's the one we happen to be looking for. That would be enough. I would now be able to search globally, or I would now have a very simple detection, but a detection that's across the board for potentially all of my clients that will let me know as soon as this event occurs. And then I can even set the severities, choose a SOAR action associated with it. So maybe, I want to really get down and dirty with this and say, no, immediately disable the accounts that are associated with this type of an activity. You also have the option if you're going to consume the MDR service. So you can always take the platform as just the XDR component, where you're responsible for doing all of the triage and investigation work. Or you can consume the MDR service, and that's where we will handle that for you. And you can even create those custom detections, have those custom rules of engagement for those custom detections, which are, let me go here. That way you can have prescribed behaviors for the certain types of events that you are concerned with. So as just a small pause for a few minutes, now that we're 30 minutes in, we're going to give an opportunity for anybody that has any questions or anybody would like to see anything additional in the platform. Please throw those into the questions panel. I'll be able to answer those for you. While we're waiting on that, just a reminder that you are able to, again, consume the offering in 3 flavors. There is the breach prevention for M365, which is absolutely wonderful for your clients that really may not truly need a full MDR offering, but it's also a good foot in the door capability to raise awareness. Personally, my experience as an MSP in a previous life, I would absolutely be enabling and deploying this for all of my clients for the M365 breach prevention, if not at least for just a month, almost definitely for that time period whenever I'm onboarding a new client, because there is some point within the new customer acquisition process between you start your initial conversations with the client and you finally sign the managed services agreement. That time in between could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months, it could be 3 months. But in that time, your hand's in the cookie jar as far as your clients are concerned. And if anything goes wrong, even if it's not your fault and it's not your responsibility because it's related to the computers, they're still going to be looking at you for why did you let this happen. So I'm a very big advocate for, during that initial onboarding period, before you have your clients locked into a managed services agreement and you have your the full protection of the language in your managed services agreement, setting this up and running it. So in that period, there is a second set of eyes watching and monitoring what's happening with that user's M365 tenancy, so that you're not left in a situation where they're very upset with you because you didn't stop a foreign login attempt, or you didn't catch that there was a VPN access attempt and a user, because a user's credentials were stolen on the dark web and they were used to log in, get past the VPN, and exfiltrate data. All right, a few questions coming in. So whenever you're doing the full platform and you have access to the full MDR offering, the way that's going to work is you'll still have access to the full platform, to the XDR capabilities. So you can do all of the work that the MDR service would do if you want to take it on yourself. You're the manage in that situation. But you're of course able to consume the MDR service, where we will take that over for you. And the integrations, whenever you're doing just the breach prevention for M365, the only integration you will have available for you is Azure. And so you won't have Google, you won't have SentinelOne, you won't have any of all of these other integrations we have available. You'll be locked into just Azure. And it will be focused just on the IAM portions of Azure, so your intra-ID events. And if we click on this, we can see all of the events that are being ingested into the platform. So everything that M365 intra-ID is generating according to the licensing you have and the configuration of the tenant, all of that information is coming in here, available, can be investigated, searched, rule detections can be written against this. So if one of your conditions is that you have a very tight rein on new creation of user accounts in Intra, you can write custom detections that will give you a notification whenever a new computer account is created, because, well, your clients are supposed to be purchasing all of their hardware through you. And if all of a sudden a brand new computer gets joined to that Intra environment, you're probably going to want to know about it. And you've got that capability in here by writing those custom detections. There's also geo analysis associated with this, so you're able to see quickly at a glance, where are these login attempts originating from, so that can give you kind of a heads up and an understanding of what's happening in that particular tenant. And we color code it so you know what's detections because of, in this case for Azure, if you're using Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, your malware detections would be listed there. But then here we get the login failure and the access event. So you're able to quickly and easily see for this particular tenant, all of the logins and the access events are coming here from continental US. The custom detections and configuration again. This is probably the hardest component of the platform, is learning the syntax to write the queries. But if you have anybody on your team that has any familiarity with KQL, EQL, writing SQL queries, they will be able to pick this up in a matter of minutes. Also for the accounts, this is a very good question. You'll also be able to do audits of accounts right from here. So you will be able to see what is being protected within that M365 tenancy. So This can be a way for you to double check and make sure there's alignments between what the client says tells you exist in the environment, what your M365 administrator says should be there, versus what is actually coming out of M365 via logs. And again, we will be showing you with the N365 Breach Prevention, you won't have all of this information. So you won't have, your at-risk systems. You will not have your at-risk shares or anything like that, but you will have information around stale accounts, stale passwords, where users have their passwords set never to expire. You'll also be able to push out, and this is available in the Breach Prevention for M365 as well as the XDR and MDR offerings. You're able to run the administrative report for M365 coverage in the tenant. If you've never been asked to go generate a report that says these are the users that have MFA enabled in the environment and the types of MFA authentication enabled, that's not an easy thing to really go do. It takes a little bit of programming, graph API access, some of the PowerShell for Azure modules. And it's not that it's not doable, but somebody has to take the time and effort to do it, and then somebody has to know how to run that little utility that was created to do it. Whereas here with the Adlumin platform, it is simply push the button, build a report, it generates the report for you. For the full MDR and XDR offering, you'll have access to all of these reports. So you'll be able to say, well, hey, incident happens, the insurance company is called in, they bring in their digital forensics investigation team, and that DFIR team says we need X, Y, and Z logs. Without something like N-able MDR being deployed, that means we're spending 2 days, 3 days, 4 days gathering that information, helping them gather that information, pulling logs from servers, from firewall appliances, from IDS, IPS systems. Versus if you have it in place, you simply create them as a user in the tenant, as an auditor, or as an incident responder, and they'll have access to all the information that they need. So it can help change engagements that used to be days to get through, hopefully into engagements that take a matter of hours, or simply a matter of a few days. I like comparing that to the difference is, and kind of what gets lost sometimes is whenever ransomware occurs, whenever there are data exfiltration attacks, they are crimes. And what is your obligation as an MSP to preserve evidence? That's not a conversation that is often had with the small businesses and the mid-market businesses that a lot of MSPs offer services to. So it's one of those you don't think about it until it's too late situations. All right, still some opportunity for anybody to get in here and ask individual questions. The ransomware prevention and the ransomware exfiltration that's here. This is additional capability, but this does start giving you more of your file integrity monitoring, but it's not a full replacement for a true file integrity monitoring service. So I just wanted to mention that real quickly, that if you need a full-fledged file integrity monitoring for specific files because you're concerned about data manipulation or unapproved data manipulation activities that are happening in the data sets you're responsible for, this will have a record that the files were modified. You would have that in your integrations with Azure for the M3. If it was happening in SharePoint, you would have it via the endpoints that the file modifications were being happening on endpoints. You would have a record of it, but it's just not really scalable as a proactive item. It's something you can always go back and have the evidence for and be able to say, this is the user that modified the file, but you wouldn't be able to say these are the modifications that the user made. And that's what a full FIM usually gives you. All right. No additional questions have been coming in, but we're still going to give you, we still have a whole 15 or so minutes left on the scheduled session. But in the meantime, if you would like to book a meeting and discuss Adlumin MDR breach prevention, for 365 or the MDR platform itself, here's your opportunity to reach out to us and let us know. Just type meeting into the chat so we know you have an interest in it, and we'll reach out to you. And it'll also get you a $50 Aussie Amazon gift card for those that are joining us from Australia. And again, this integration process, or the time to implement and set this up, really is minutes. I know it's one of those, it can't be that fast, it can't be that easy. There's got to be a catch. But whenever you are creating your integrations for this, for the M365 breach prevention, it really is as simple as plugging in some information for your M365 tenant. And we have scripts already created that helps you prepare the environment for you, creating the appropriate GDAP permissions and such, so that you can quickly get this up and running. If everything runs smoothly, it's a 5-minute process. All right, again, for anybody that's interested in getting an opportunity to trial out the offering, and this is a full-fledged POC. So whenever you are trialing either the breach prevention for M365 or the full MDR, everything is functional and available for you. So a few questions started coming in. So in M365, what counts as a privileged account? So let me go see a few things. So whenever we go to accounts, just so you can see what's available in here and what the platform has available, we're able to say see for individual users, and this is a very quiet user. So let me go grab the other user, somebody that actually has some events. So as far as what counts as a privileged account, kind of as far as the MDR, the breach prevention for M365 component of this is concerned, all users are privileged accounts in the sense that we're going to treat anything that comes in from any user in the domain the same. And you might think, well, okay, but I want to treat the privileged accounts more special. But because of the automation, because of the machine learning, the AI-derived threat modeling that we do and everything else, it's simply easier to treat everybody the best that we can. Now, if you are, marking at risk, M365 risky user tagging and other elements, the things that you do over in the M365 land, that will come over. That will be part of the what the platform is using to make its, this scored kind of at the line, but since this is a, probably a high value account, or it's a I forgot what the Microsoft's new name is it for the replacements for service accounts. I think it's DMSA accounts. That would necessarily score as a higher threat profile thing, so it may score it higher and take action against it, whereas it may not have done it for a normal user account. There's not this particular session, I don't believe we're going to be doing a recording where this is going to be available later, but I do encourage you to check out the events page, N-able.com/events. If you're more on the sales or business development side of your MSP, we'll be doing an additional boot camp, an additional session that's about packaging and selling MDR. So if that's a challenge for you, keep an eye out for that. My co-member of my team, Stephanie Hammond, will be putting that on, and that's a great opportunity for you to learn there. All right, looks like we've gotten through all the additional questions that come in. You know, we've still got another 12 minutes on the scheduled time. So again, feel free to throw any additional ones in. Thank you for those that expressed interest in doing, talking to us about MDR and the 365 Breach Prevention more deeply. We'll be reaching out to you soon about that. And also, just as a quick, so everybody has it, if you have any follow-up technical questions, not necessarily for the sales process, you can reach out to me at lewis.pope@n-able.com. And Mr. DC, yes, this is live. You're just not going to see the questions. That's only going to be on my side, and I'm not pushing, since I'm talking, I'm not pushing the responses back out to everybody. All right, I encourage everybody to check out for that upcoming events page. And if you found your way here and you do not know about the events page for N-able, all of our upcoming events are listed here, from our in-person events to our scheduled office hour sessions, boot camps, masterclass sessions. So if you are in need of educational content, not just for N-able products, but also for just the MSP channel and the business of MSP as well, make sure you're checking this out, because we have tons and tons of resources available for you here in these live events, and your opportunity to interact with experts on the platform, experts on the MSP channel and the MSP business model. And if I'm correct, let's see if we can find that upcoming, there we go. Stephanie Hammond, office hours, absolutely wonderful resource if anybody's here on the business side. And again, take advantage of this. There's a wealth of knowledge being communicated back out to the community there. All right, looks like we've gotten all the questions answered. Again, thank you for those who reached out and said you would like to discuss this further. If anybody is already on the platform and you are looking to this for some additional educational options, or if I talked about something that you're interested in getting access to so that you can leverage it for part of your communications and part of your client communications and messaging, feel free to reach out to me, lewis.pope@n-able.com. That's over in the chat. Be more than happy to get some of that resources to you, but there will be a much larger wealth of information for you available on the upcoming EDR, how to sell and package it. So thank you everybody for taking the time to join us. As always, it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed the interaction with everybody. Do not hesitate to reach out to me directly if you know anything compliance related, essential aid related, a resource for you here at N-able. But if you're interested, again, let us know by typing in meeting in the chat, so we know you want us to reach out to you specifically on the MDR or the N365 Breach Prevention. And hopefully you got some value out of today's session, and we will see you on future office hours, boot camps, master classes, and other educational opportunities here from us at N-able.